Welcome. This video will demonstrate the differences between the Formtek Peer Association extension and the Formtek File Linking extension. Both extensions provide support for various releases of Alfresco 4 and Alfresco 5. Consult the Formtek website for more detailed information about the versions of Alfresco that we support. We're often asked to explain the difference between our file linking and peer association extensions for Alfresco. While links and associations may sound similar, they provide distinctly different functionality in Alfresco. The peer association extension lets you define a one-way relationship from one document to one or more other documents. This peer-to-peer relationship is more granular than the typical parent-child relationship of folders and documents. The file linking extension lets you make a document available from multiple locations without actually copying the physical files. I like to think of links as virtual copies of my original file, and you can also think of them as shortcuts. These virtual copies all point to the same parent file, but they take up no additional space. This allows you to indicate that the linked file has some sort of meaning or importance to this folder or to other files inside this folder. The best example of peer association is as the bibliography for a specific document. If I'm working on a document and storing it in Alfresco, what record am I leaving behind about the supporting documents that contributed to my final deliverable? If someone else has to work on this project in the future, how will they know what documents were used? Or if I have to come back to this project in the future, will I remember? Another example of peer association is to create an association between an RFP document and any bids received for that RFP. A common use of file linking is when you're building a collection of deliverable documents for a client. You can create the client-specific document in your project folder, then create links into that same folder from standard documents that need to be delivered to the client. These standard documents could be things like common marketing collateral about your company or case studies that are relevant to your project. This can be useful to help visualize the final deliverable to a client by seeing all of your documents in the same place. Another example of file linking is to use file links to place useful documents inside a project-specific folder while your team is working on the project. You could create the project folder, create links to similar contracts or statement of work documents or even engineering drawings that you've done for similar projects, and then instruct your team to create the new document based on the linked documents. When the project is done, you can delete the links to clean up your project folder. The peer association and file linking extensions work together very nicely. In the image shown here, this case study has been linked to other folders and it has associations. We'll look at an example like this when we get into the demo. Let's look at some technical details about associations and links. Associations are stored as metadata on the main document. Because associations are one-way, the documents associated with the main document don't have any information on them. Think of this as a research paper that cites several books as sources. The research paper knows what its sources are, but the sources don't know anything about the research paper. The node browser image on the left shows the associations as metadata under one of my statement of work documents. The associations defined in the peer association interface are displayed on the right. Links, on the other hand, are actual nodes in the Alfresco repository. When you view a folder that has links in it, you'll see the links appear alongside all conventional documents in that folder. The links themselves can't be edited, but you can click on the link name to be taken to the document details for that document. The image on the left shows the links stored as separate child nodes inside my project folder. The image on the right shows the links as they're displayed inside the folder in Alfresco. Now let's take a look at some examples of peer association and file linking extensions in Alfresco. I'm logged into Alfresco as my demo user, Frank Smith. Let's get into the FT Engineer site and then into the document library. So let's find some examples of how peer association has been used at this company. The first example I'd like to show is how the company has chosen to associate bids with their respective RFPs. Let's go to the internal folder, into purchasing, into RFPs, and into the 2015 folder. So the company sent out a few RFPs this year to get the company pickup trucks replaced and to upgrade the windows in their office. Because the company deals with many of the same vendors across different internal and client projects, they organize incoming bids by vendor. Looking at the window replacement RFP, we can see from the paperclip on the left that this RFP has some documents associated with it. Let's open the document details page for this RFP and see what other documents have been associated with it. Scrolling down this page, we can see that this document has an association section with several documents listed. It appears that this company received bids from the Windows RS company and from the ABC Windows company. I can click on these two document names to get to the document details page for the respective documents. And here's the bid from Windows RS. Looking at the folder structure up here, this bid is located in the Vendor Responses and Bids folder, where we keep all of our bids and responses. As I mentioned before, peer associations are one way. This means that the RFP document knows about the bids that are associated with it, but the bid documents don't know anything about the RFP. If we scroll down the list of properties here, you can see that we don't have an association section for the bid. Let's take a look at another example of how this company uses peer associations. Let's go back to Documents, into the Projects folder, and then into the Buried Traffic Analysis folder. This folder contains all of the project level documents for this traffic analysis project. There's one deliverable document that I'd like to talk about, the Statement of Work. The statement of work is one of the first deliverables I'm going to have for this project. So we've met with our customer to gather some information from them, recorded the notes from the various meetings in our meeting minutes folder, and then generated the statement of work. You can see from the paperclip icon that this document has associations. I've used peer associations to record what other documents contributed to this deliverable. This way, if my coworkers or I need to come back to this project in the future, we'll have a clear understanding of what other documents were used for research purposes. Let's click on the document to see what associations have been defined. So here's my statement of work document. Scrolling down the page, we can get to the association section and see that 3 documents have been associated with this statement of work. I have several meeting minutes documents and the PennDOT Highway Design Manual. From here, I have quick access to all of these documents without having to search through the system or navigate through folder structures. I can also click the Manage Associations icon to get into the Manage Associations screen to add or remove associations. For a more detailed look at the Formtek Peer Associations extension for Alfresco, consult the Formtek website or the Formtek YouTube channel. URLs for both of these websites will be displayed at the end of this video. Now let's take a look at some examples of how the file linking extension works. Let's back out to the project folder and down to the Monroeville Traffic Analysis folder. The first example that we mentioned earlier had to do with organizing deliverable documents within a project. It's common to have folders that are organized for individual projects this way. For this traffic light analysis project, you can see that we have one main folder for the project, Monroeville Traffic Light Analysis, with several subfolders for engineering drawings, meeting minutes, and site photos. Let's switch from detailed view to symbol view so that we can see all of these documents at once. So my initial deliverable to this customer was the statement of work, a handful of data sheets, a standard About Us document, and some case studies that we've done about similar traffic-related projects. To organize this deliverable, I could have copied all of those files from their respective folders into this folder, but in doing so I would have increased the storage space needed for these documents in my repository and created unnecessary copies of those documents. Instead, by using links to represent these files, it allows me to visualize what the final deliverable to this customer is going to look like without the overhead and burden of having duplicate files all over my system. The second file linking example I mentioned earlier involved creating temporary links to similar supporting files while I'm working on a project. Let's log in as a different user, then take a look at a new project that the company is working on. So the new project that we're working on is the Delmont Traffic Analysis Project. So looking in this folder, I can see that Tom created the Statement of Work document, links to 2 other Statement of Work documents, the PennDOT Highway Design Manual, and a few AutoCAD files. If we open the Delmont Statement of Work document, we can see that it's nothing more than a template file at this point. To jumpstart his team with this project, Tom created the new statement of work document from a template, then he created links to the statement of work documents from other projects, and he also created a workflow informing his team of the new project with a note explaining the links in the folder. Here's the workflow that Tom created for this project. Tom could have copied these files into this folder instead, but we already know that creating copies of documents in a content management system wastes space and can eventually lead to confusion about what copy of a document is the proper version to use. Using file linking to create links to these supporting documents is a much cleaner solution. For a more detailed look at the Formtek file linking extension for Alfresco, consult the Formtek website or the Formtek YouTube channel. URLs for both of these websites will be displayed at the end of this video. Additionally, I should point out that we're only able to view thumbnails of AutoCAD files here because we have the Formtek EDM module installed. Consult the Formtek website for more information about the Formtek EDM module. Finally, let's see an example of a document that has both associations defined for it and links created from it. Look at the statement of work for Monroeville that is linked to this Delmont folder. Obviously, this Monroeville document isn't going to be part of the deliverable for the Delmont project, but Tom copied it here for his team to use while working on the project. Let's click the Locate Linked Item action to go back to the Monroeville folder. Note how we've been taken to the Monroeville folder, and the Monroeville statement of work document flashed yellow to identify it. Let's look over to the left side where we have a link icon to indicate that this document has one or more links. And we can see that it's been linked to multiple places, one of which was the Delmont folder that we just left. Below that, we can see a paperclip icon that indicates that this document has associations. The company has used the Formtek Peer Association extension to indicate which documents were used as supporting materials while creating this document. In this case, they used the 2 meeting minutes documents, plus the PennDOT Highway Design Manual and the Allegheny County Permit Manual. Let's take a look. So here we can see all the documents that have been associated. So as you can see, there are a number of different examples of how the Formtek file linking extension and the Formtek peer association extension can be used in the same system and even on the same documents. I hope this demo helped illustrate the differences for you. The Formtek file linking and peer association extensions for Alfresco run on various versions of Alfresco 4 and Alfresco 5 on both Windows and Linux servers. Refer to the Formtek website for specific details about what operating systems and versions of Alfresco we support. Both extensions also install and uninstall with easy-to-run command line scripts. This last slide displays a list of areas where you can find more information about these extensions and other Formtek Alfresco extensions. Thank you for watching.